Hey, welcome to this episode of the Honey-Do List. What we're going to do today is we're going to be painting this Rayco paneling. This is something that they put in a lot of mobile homes manufactured between the 80s and present day. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to, cut in a straight line. We're going to teach you how to roll. We've already filled in a lot of the nail holes. What we used on that would be the Fast and Final product. You can find this at any big box store, home improvement area. What you do is you take a little bit, we have a hole right here. What you do is you take a little bit on your finger, put it on the hole, wipe it smooth. I mean, it's water based. If you get it on your clothes or your shirt or your pants or anything or on the carpet, it will vacuum up or wash off with water. Okay, with that being said, some of the things that we're going to be using is, of course, a cut brush bucket and a cut brush. You can see I already have paint on my brush. A cut brush is a paintbrush that has an angle on it, and the reason for that is so when you come up to the wall and you go to cut in a straight line, what you do is you press and you see how you get that nice straight line with the cut brush. Okay, let me get that smoothed out a little bit. And anytime that you're painting on any surface that has a raised area, you'll want to go ahead and paint that area. And you want to put enough paint on there so when you put on the paint with a roller, it's not it doesn't look thin here. A lot of times what people will do is they'll come in, they'll put on paint super thin, they'll keep, moving it around to where it's so thin that by the time that you come back with your roller to a heavier paint, when it dries, it has a line there. And what that line is referred to in the painting industry is picture framing. You'll actually be able to see the cut-in line around the wall. That's something that you don't want to happen. That's why you always want to make sure that you have a very large amount of paint on the brush at all times. When you get down near the bottom of the trim down here, this is where the cutting technique comes in. What you want to do is, I always make a line like that. Okay, and then what I do with that is, I now can take this paint and push it down to a straight edge. And then when I paint my straight edge, I'm only using a few bristles. And you get that nice straight cut in line. Then you can come back in and feather it in. Like this. You can see how I just came into the corner. And what you want to do is you want to make sure there's no drips or runs or anything in that thing. And that's how you basically would cut in. And you would do this around all your trim, all your high points, and your ceiling. One other thing that I like to do is, because we did have to fill in some holes, I like to paint them. And see how I notice that now that is up, raised. Take the back of your paintbrush and push it in. So when you go back over it, it's not as noticeable. And I mean, you will always be able to tell where there was a nail hole in the wall unless you put some kind of drywall mud, spread it out thin, sand it back down smooth. You're always going to be able to see it. Luckily, like these little small ones here, once we roll out the wall, they will pretty much disappear. Something that raised up a little bit higher like this will always show, so you want to kind of, get it a little smoother. I will work on that once, we get started. The only other thing that I really want to talk about, let me set that down real quick, is when people, I go to these home improvement stores and I see them, they're always talking about, get your paint roller wet and you go like this. I don't believe that to be true. I used to own a painting and handyman service, and what we came up with is, you would get your paint roller wet, you would start here, you go all the way up to the ceiling, all the way back down, redo your brush, and then from here to here is your first roller. So what you want to do is you want to come back 50% of your roller. And you do the same thing. You dip it, you go all the way up, and come all the way back down. Dip it again, 50% of your roller again. And what that does is, every time that you roll, you're getting 2 coats of paint per every 50% of the roller. So by the time that I get down to the end of the wall here, I've already put 2 coats of paint in the time that it takes one person to do. 1 coat of paint usually. It'll give you a thicker, heavier coating on the wall, and it saves you time in the long run. The few other little things I want to talk about is when you clean a roller, everybody sees the painter's tools and has the notch in the side of it. What you want to do is scrape the excess paint out of it, and then what I do is I take and put it on an extension pole and I spray water across it in the direction and it slings the paint out. Once you're done with that, you usually end up with something that looks like this. It's a little, still has a little bit of paint in it, everything. Well, one of the tricks to that is to get one of these from your local hardware stores. This is what's known as a paintbrush and roller spinner. And what you would do is you slide this on there, and the way that it works is once there's water on that, you would turn it and it spins. And what you do is you spin it rapidly. And what that does is that slings all the extra paint, or what we call paint water. You know, it's actually like a milky looking water out of the roller, and that keeps them clean. Okay, and it also, not only does it do the paint roller, but you can actually slide your paintbrush in the end here and spin your paintbrush before you put it back in your cardboard sleeve for your paintbrush, and that keeps it clean and ready to use on a later date. Some of the other things are, you know, always have a good paint cup. This one is a little cheaper model, and it works really good for painting trim when you're only going to use a little small amount of paint. But if you notice, the handle does tweak and turn as, you know, you put more weight in there, it wants to give. So with that being said, I don't know if you noticed this one that I was using just a minute ago. It has a nice handle where my hand fits around there safely. It has a lip on the inside, so when I drag my paint off, it goes back inside of it. And it also has a magnet right here to hold my paintbrush out of the paint. Okay, this is also made out of a plastic that once the paint dries, you can usually just scrape it off of the inside. Now the black ring on the outside, of course you can tell I've been using this one for many of years. I've actually got about 6 or 7, 8 good years out of this one already. And that's why the paint's built up here. But make sure that you get a good one. This is something that I don't have to hold on to. My hand doesn't get fatigued from grabbing it around there and holding it like you would this handle. This handle is hollowed out, and it just is not very comfortable. So make sure that you get yourself a comfortable paint tray, a painter's, you know, cut and cup. And another thing that you want to do is also make sure that you always clean and wash and prep your surfaces before. We, you know, used a mild soap. This is Rayco paneling, like I had said. This is a wallpaper over a Durarock or sheetrock wall. This is a paintable surface, and this is something that you don't have to prep like an average panel. I mean, over an actual wallpaper wall. Most of the times, if you're going to do wallpaper, you would have to strip it. But in this, they did design these to be painted over in most mobile homes or modular homes. With that being said, I hope that these tips were helpful to you, and thank you, and let's tackle those honey-do lists.